Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're tackling a problem that honestly drives homeowners absolutely crazy every single year. Let's just dive right into this explainer. Our goal today? To give you a permanent pro-level framework to banish moss from your entire property. Look, we aren't just talking about some quick weekend fix here. We're going to look at how to permanently reclaim your lawn, your driveway, and your patios using proven methods from actual property restoration experts. I mean, are you tired of battling the exact same green slime every spring? You know the drill. You spend hours scraping it, washing it away, and bam, by next year it's right back. It makes your walkways a total slipping hazard and just chokes out your grass. Well, the frustration of those failed quick fixes stops today. We're going on a chronological journey that's going to solve your moss problem for good, transforming those slimy, stinky outdoor spaces back into an entertainment-worthy oasis.
Okay, so here's our step-by-step masterclass agenda. First, understanding the moss invasion. Then, immediate moth removal tactics. Third, fixing the root causes. Fourth, reseeding for permanent defense. And finally, sealing patios and pavers.
All right, Section 1. Understanding the moss invasion. Before we can defeat the enemy, we kind of have to know why it's setting up camp in your yard in the first place, right? Like the quote says, moss is actually pretty chill. It just grows where conditions are optimal. See, we often treat moss like it's this super aggressive, invasive weed attacking our property, but honestly, it has an incredibly shallow root system. It's not aggressive at all. It's really just a symptom. It's essentially a giant flashing indicator light that your local yard environment is struggling, and the moss is just filling in the blanks where your grass is already thrown in the towel.
So what are those optimal conditions? Well, they're exactly what your grass absolutely hates. We're talking heavy shade from overhead trees, poor drainage where water just sits around, heavily compacted soil that basically chokes off airflow, and low pH, meaning highly acidic soil. If your yard has this damp, shady vibe, you're literally rolling out the red carpet for moss.
Moving on to Section 2, Immediate Moss Removal Tactics.
Now for the highly satisfying part, clearing out that green slime ruining your curb appeal. But choosing the right tool is absolutely crucial here. When comparing a putty knife to a pressure washer for pavers, a lot of folks immediately grab that 1900 PSI pressure washer with the turbo nozzle. I get it, it's fun, but pros warn that pressure washing just blasts stinky muck everywhere. If you already have a moss problem, blowing all that water and organic debris around will literally spread moss spores straight into your grass, making the whole thing way worse. That's why a simple putty knife is actually superior. You just scrape it out section by section, sweep it up, and toss it in the yard waste. It's way less messy, saves a ton of water, and keeps those spores out of your lawn.
Now, if you have moss heavily embedded in the lawn itself, raking works, sure. But you can also bring in the chemical killers. You've got those easy liquid hose end sprays, or my absolute favorite to watch, granular iron sulfate. When you sprinkle this granular moss control onto bright green moss, within just a few hours, it visibly reacts and turns the moss completely black as it dies. It is seriously so satisfying to see. As for your hardscaping and masonry, industrial strength options like a 1-to-1 mix of 30 seconds cleaner or a sodium hypochlorite treatment will deep clean those stubborn, decades-old stains and kill the moss absolutely dead.
Which brings us to Section 3, Fixing the Root Causes. Look, removing the moss is awesome, but if you stop there, yeah, you'll be doing it all over again next spring. This right here is the secret sauce of our explainer, addressing the underlying environment so the moss literally starves. Let's break down the soil testing phase. Step 1, mail a dirt probe sample using a standard soil test kit. Step 2, address the pH based strictly on those results. Step 3, aerate. And listen to me on this one. So many people see moss, assume their soil is acidic, and just start dumping pallet loads of limestone everywhere. Do not blindly do this. You can totally have moss without having highly acidic soil. A soil test is literally the only accurate way to know what your lawn actually needs before you waste your time and money.
And what about soil compaction? Well, there's a brilliant DIY hack for this called the compaction test. Just grab a standard screwdriver and try pushing it straight down into the ground. You should be able to push it all the way to the handle using just your bare hand. If you can't, your soil is heavily compacted. It's basically suffocating your grass roots and practically begging moss to move in. To fix this, you need to pull actual physical dirt plugs out of the lawn using a manual or tow-behind core aerator. That's going to open that soil right back up to water and air.
All right, Section 4, Reseeding for Permanent Defense.
So we've killed the moss, we've prepped the soil, and now we build our fortress. The absolute best defense against returning moss is a thick, healthy lawn that just naturally crowds out weeds. But seed selection is a big deal. Remember, moss typically takes over because an area lacks sunlight.
If you try planting sun-loving grass in heavy shade, it's going to thin right out, and boom, the moss is back. For heavy shade, you really want to lean on fine fescues or a high-quality turf-type tall fescue. If the area actually gets full sun, then you can break out the Kentucky bluegrass. Just make sure to match the seed to your sun level, or you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Okay, I have a total pro tip for you here, the seed pre-germination hack. Remember in grade school when you grew those lima beans in a wet paper towel? It's exactly like that. You put your grass seed in a paint strainer bag, soak it fully in a bucket of water for 12 hours, and then dip it twice a day. This actually causes the seed to germinate before you even plant it. Once it starts sprouting, you mix that wet seed with Millergonite fertilizer so it dries out just enough to go through your broadcast spreader. Guys, this drastically speeds up growth and massively cuts down on the amount of watering you have to do.
Now, after the seed goes down, you absolutely must top dress it to lock in that moisture. Peat moss is the ultimate secret weapon for this. It acts just like a giant sponge, keeping the seed wet way longer, which means less water used overall. And hey, here's a fun physical trick for you. Peat moss usually comes in these tightly compressed, super heavy cubes. Before you've even opened the bag, hop up on it, stomp on it, dance around a bit, just physically break it all up while it's still sealed. When you finally slice it open, the dirt will be light, fluffy, and ridiculously easy to spread.
Finally, Section 5, Sealing Patios and Pavers.
Okay, we've got our lawn strategy on lock. So let's shift focus back to the hardscaping for the final phase of property defense. You've scraped the moss out of the joints with your putty knife, but now we got to repair the structural integrity. See, tree roots push pavers up, and poor bases cause them to sag. You've got to pull those uneven blocks out, use a multi-tool to cleanly slice out any intrusive tree roots, screed some new crushed stone to level the base, and then hit the whole surface with that 1-to-1 chemical cleaner. That's going to dissolve a literal decade of grime and algae. Once your pavers are perfectly clean and completely dry, it's time to refill the gaps. But I want to pose a critical question here, one that traps so many DIYers in this endless cycle of misery. Why not just use cheap play sand to fill the joints?
Well, the answer comes down to polymeric sand versus play sand. If you use play sand, the very next rainstorm is just going to wash it completely out. That leaves perfect little empty trenches for water to pool in, which immediately invites all that organic moss growth right back. You must use polymeric sand, something like Pavermate Z3. You sweep it in, vibrate it down with a mallet, blow off the excess, and give it a light watering. Once that polymeric sand dries, it creates this tight concrete-like bond. It locks the pavers firmly in place, completely stops weeds and moss from taking root, and it's rain-safe in minutes. It is the absolute ultimate fortress against future patio moss.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to stop cleaning up the exact same green mess year after year? Because you now have the professional framework. You know to test your soil before acting. You know to use the right shade-tolerant seed, how to outcompete moss with a thick lawn, and how to lock down your pavers with polymeric sand. The knowledge is in your hands. So get out there and finally, permanently reclaim your backyard oasis. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.